Have you ever explained something very clearly, but the other person still reacts like you said something completely different? You might say something simple, calm, and normal, but suddenly the conversation turns into tension, blame, or an argument. This happens very often when you're dealing with a narcissist, and it can leave you feeling confused. You start thinking, did I say it the wrong way? Maybe I should explain it better. Maybe they misunderstood me. But many times, the real problem isn't your explanation. The problem is how they interpret what you say. A narcissist often listens through a very personal filter. Instead of hearing the message itself, they quickly connect it to their ego. So normal statements start sounding like personal attacks to them. For example, imagine you say something simple like, "I'd like to handle this myself." For most people, that just means independence. But a narcissist might hear something very different. In their mind, it can turn into, "You don't need me. You're rejecting my help. You're trying to prove you're better than me." Your sentence hasn't changed, but the meaning inside their mind has. And suddenly they react to something you never actually said. Another common example is when you set a boundary. You might calmly say, "I can't do that right now." Or, "I'm not comfortable with that." A healthy person might accept it, even if they don't like it, but a narcissist may immediately interpret it as disrespect. To them it can sound like, "You're ignoring me. You don't care about me. You're challenging my authority." Again, the words are simple, but the interpretation becomes emotional and exaggerated. Why does this happen? One reason is ego protection. If they accept your words exactly as you said them, sometimes it means accepting limits, boundaries, or independence. And those things can feel threatening to someone who wants control. So instead of accepting the message, they reshape it. Your boundary becomes an insult. Your opinion becomes an attack. Your independence becomes betrayal. And now the conversation is no longer about the original topic. It becomes about defending their ego. This is also why conversations with narcissists often feel exhausting. You explain something once. They twist the meaning. You try to clarify. They twist it again. Then you explain more and more and more. Before you realize it, you're giving long explanations for something that was very simple in the beginning. And even after all that explaining, they still act like they don't understand. At some point you may start feeling frustrated, drained, or even doubting yourself. But here's something important to understand. Not every misunderstanding is innocent. Sometimes misunderstanding keeps the conversation under their control. If the discussion keeps going in circles, the attention stays on them. And if you stay busy explaining yourself, you're not setting firm boundaries. So what can you do in these situations? Instead of explaining everything again and again, keep your responses simple. Say your point clearly, but briefly. For example, "This is what I meant." "That's not what I said." "You're misunderstanding my point." "I'm not going to argue about that." And then pause. You don't need to convince someone who has already decided to twist your words. Healthy communication works when both people are trying to understand each other. But when someone keeps changing the meaning of what you say, the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm, stay clear, and avoid getting pulled into endless explanations. Because sometimes the goal isn't to be understood perfectly. Sometimes the goal is simply to stay grounded and keep your clarity.